The Last Crusade. Written by Paradigm Shine. Applebloom held her breath as she gazed out the clubhouse window. The sun was beginning to dip below the tree line as the sky turned into a soft, beautiful orange. Night began to creep its fingers across the sky, silently snuffing out the day. Twilight. Applebloom rushed to the other window, facing Sweet Apple Acres. They told her they'd come from the Apple family barn this time, and the time was right. Applebloom had already attempted the math in her head several times over to confirm that. She had always been an impatient filly. Well, perhaps not as impatient as Scootaloo, but when something was on her mind, she couldn't just let it go. Nothing would change that. Her heart beat feverishly, and she began to feel as if she were breaking into a cold sweat, although she felt no moisture, just a sensation. She remembered that feeling. It meant anxiety. She felt it often enough before, whether it was from her sister Applejack's annoyance with her from some clumsy mistake, or perhaps just a bad feeling before one of Scootaloo's ridiculous cutie mark crusader schemes. The filly smiled softly. They'd been through so much together, the three of them. Just the thought of Scootaloo and Sweetie Belle made Applebloom's heart skip a beat in joy. Her thoughts turned on to her sister, Applejack. Oh, how Applebloom wished she would come to the clubhouse tonight too. But the filly knew it couldn't be. Applejack was just too old for this. She was too mature for mumbo-jumbo, as she would call it. It saddened Applebloom to think about it, but she knew too well how stubborn her sister was. She couldn't just see things the way her friends could, but at least she had them. Being a blank, the fear of loneliness had always plagued Applebloom. The fear of being shut out, having no pony to talk to. Initially, the growing pain had been a curse, but it was because of that very curse that she had befriended Scootaloo and Sweetie Belle in the first place. And they were incredible friends, the best of any pony they could ever ask for. Applebloom knew that for sure. These days were more than ever, that they would never, ever leave her. The sound of footsteps broke Applebloom away from her thoughts. She sniffed, and quickly wiped her eyes with a hoof. It was still a habit, and she was certainly wanted to do as much as she could to look strong in front of her friends. They had to see that she was all right. She looked out the clubhouse door again, and saw two small figures making their way along the path. Applebloom could barely suppress the widest grin she made in a long time. The filly quickly sighted herself against the wall, ready to jump out at any unsuspecting pony to open the clubhouse door. A knock resounded from the door, and it opened slowly. Applebloom? We're back. Are you in there? Sweetie Belle's voice was as sweet as her name. Of course she's in there. Where else would she be, huh? Scootaloo's voice, though rough and blunt, was just as sweet to Applebloom's ears. Well, I don't know. Maybe she's... Boo! Applebloom leaped out of her hiding place, all the while scrunching her face up, trying to look as terrifying as possible. Sweetie Belle screamed and shot out of the clubhouse like a bullet. Scootaloo's eyes went wide, but her eyelids soon dropped, unamused. That's original, the orange filly deadpanned, a smirk creeping on her face. Oh, shut it, Scoot! I'm mighty scary. You call that scary? I'm 10 times more scary than you, and I'm not even... Scootaloo's voice trailed off. She looked to the side and cleared her throat. Hey, Sweetie Belle! Come on, stop being such a scaredy pony. It's only Applebloom. There was a silence. Then, there was a clambering of hooves and a white filly burst through the door, embracing Applebloom with her outstretched forelegs. Applebloom threw her strong pony facade out the window and returned the hug as best as she could, dry tears running down her cheeks as she pressed her head into Sweetie's soft mane. I'd be lying if I didn't say I missed you too like heck. Applebloom sobbed into Sweetie's mane. I know you guys had that trip to Canterlot, and I really do hope you had fun. And I know y'all can't stay here 24/7, but sometimes I just don't know what to do. All I got is my thoughts to keep me company. I can't do this, sweetie. I can't. Apple Bloom looked up at her friends to see her own feelings reflected on their faces. Even Scoot's eyes were welling up with tears. She didn't like seeing them like this, not for her sake. I'm sorry, guys. I don't want to put this on you. How's Applejack? Sweetie's voice cracked. She's great, Apple Bloom. Yeah, almost as cool as Rainbow Dash these days. Apple Bloom smiled at the mention of Dash. As always, she was still Scootaloo's hero. Apple Bloom hadn't been in Ponybone much in the last couple of months. She really wanted to go back into town, but it was just too close to the spot. She'd gone as far as Fluttershy's cottage, and it was nice to see the kind yellow Pegasus again, but she really just didn't see every pony else anymore, except for those who stopped by the farm every now and then. Why don't you go back into the farmhouse? Scootaloo asked. I mean, at least you could see your family more often. Apple Bloom shook her head. Nah, I can't. I tried to a couple of times, but I think I'll just cause them more trouble than anything else. I think they can hear me, and I always cause a racket. I don't want to bother them, or worse, scare them. How could they be afraid of you, Apple Bloom? Sweetie Belle frowned. You're the nicest pony I ever met. We are not afraid of you. No pony should be. Well, y'all can't see me, can't ya? Of course, Sweetie said, in a matter-of-factly. But her face soon darkened at the sight of her friends' faces. What? Apple Bloom sighed heavily. Scootaloo looked down, but her face soon hardened with a determined anger. That's it! Apple Bloom and Sweetie Belle jumped at the orange filly's sudden outburst. I can't take this anymore! We are showing you to Applejack. Come on! Scoot, you're crazy! You know what will happen. They'll think you gone bonkers. Please. No, okay? I'm not just gonna let you stay here all alone and see you like this all the time. You're really lonely, Apple Bloom, and I can't just sit and watch. Scootaloo shut her eyes tight as a new stream of tears were beginning to form. I can't. Apple Bloom trotted up to her and placed a hoof around her shoulder. Look, Scoot, I know how you feel. Gosh, I feel the same way if I were in your situation. But it ain't just happening that way, and you know that. I know you guys care about me, and in the same way, I worry about y'all too. Scootaloo's voice was weak. I just don't know what to do anymore. I worry about you all the time, and it just makes me feel empty inside. Well, Apple Bloom's voice became hard. I've been doing a lot of thinking, girls. I had a lot of time to think. Maybe I've taken too long to make up my mind, but I know it's got to be done. She swallowed. Now. Sweetie Belle's face was a mess of worry and confusion. She didn't know what her friend meant by all this, and a part of her didn't want to find out. She realized that Scootaloo must have known better, as tears began to blind the orange filly's sight. The spot? No, Apple Bloom. I got it, Scoot. I think every pony's got it at some point. Please don't worry about me. Apple Bloom looked out the clubhouse window. Although the night had settled in, a brilliance of light, more spectacular than anything Apple Bloom had ever witnessed, sparkled in the distance, down in Ponyville. I've been avoiding that place this whole time, but I'm not afraid of it anymore. Scoot, you see, I've heard her talk to me. She's been talking to me a lot lately. She tells me it'll be okay. And I believe her, with all my heart. The princess won't lie. Scootaloo wiped her eyes and blinked at her friend. Princess Celestia? Apple Bloom nodded. But how? I really don't know. I was as confused about it as you are. It's hard to explain. but I just know she's down there, waiting for me. Sweetie Belle, who had been silent throughout Apple Bloom's revelation, looked at the yellow earth pony with wide eyes. I don't get it. What's going on, Apple Bloom? Apple Bloom opened her mouth to speak, but as hard as she tried, no words came out. She looked at her friend sadly, stuttering. Scootaloo managed a soft smile and cut in. We are going on another crusade, sweetie. The orange Pegasus gathered her friends into a group hug. One last crusade. The three fillies trod onto the country road in silence. So many times they had taken this route. The route from Sweet Apple Acres to Ponyville. So many times they had galloped down the path together, laughing, playing, and acting outright silly. Now they were traveling it again. But there was no laughter, no playing, no angry sisters to hide from. Only memories. But they were memories that the three would share together. Apple Bloom trotted between her two friends. Her very best friends. Nothing would ever change that. A soft smile blessed her face, and her eyes were closed. She didn't need to see. She could already see everything within herself. All at once. Past, present, and future. She had traveled down this road so many times before. Her heart knew the way. Sweetie Belle glanced at her friends. Even Scoot now had a nostalgic smile on her face. She didn't understand. They were so sad before. So was she. Why were they smiling now? Where were they going? What did Scoot mean by one last crusade? Should she be smiling too? But as hard as the little filly tried, she couldn't. Apple Bloom was her friend, and she just couldn't help but worry about her. Something was going to happen. She was sure about that. Something was already happening, but like before, she was still afraid to find out. Her thoughts turned to the past. Everything had become so strange after Heartswarming. Apple Bloom had stopped coming to school. She had stopped coming out to play. Rarity had said she was homesick and needed rest. But days turned into weeks. Sweetie grew angry as every pony eventually stopped talking about her. Even Scootaloo grew quiet. They wouldn't tell her where Apple Bloom was. They wouldn't tell her anything. Then, one day after school, Scootaloo came bounding into the carousel boutique. She had found Apple Bloom. She was hiding in the clubhouse. Sweetie followed, and sure enough, there she was. They played, they laughed, they made mischief. It was just like before. But Apple Bloom would never want to go into Ponyville, and always stayed around Sweet Apple Acres. When Sweetie asked why, the old Apple family stubbornness in her surfaced, and the Earth Pony would say she just couldn't. Sweetie eventually stopped asking. The strangest thing of all was that no pony really mentioned Apple Bloom. Applejack talked about her on occasion, but it was very strange whenever she did. She always wear a sad smile, and have a twinkle in her eye. The others would too, even Rarity. But whenever Sweetie would mention her new adventures with her Earth Pony friend, she'd get a weird look from her sister, and, on occasion, a stern one. Then one night, Rarity had a talk with her. She had told her Apple Bloom was gone, and she couldn't come back. Sweetie had entered a furious temper tantrum and cried herself to sleep that night. But now, they were all going to Ponyville together. Sweetie Belle would have felt happy about it, if not for the lump in her throat and the beating of her heart. What was going on? As the fillies entered the town of Ponyville, Apple Bloom opened her eyes and looked around. She wanted to take in every detail of the place. The colorful houses, the beautiful flowers, even the well-worn dirt of the street beneath her hooves. She wanted to remember it. She wanted to remember everything. The sparkling light was everywhere. It may have been nighttime for Sweetie Belle and Scootaloo, but to her, it was bright as day. Soon, they would reach the spot. Apple Bloom took a deep breath. As the three fillies rounded a corner, Apple Bloom stopped. She looked ahead. But the fear in her heart that she expected didn't come. In fact, she felt happy. Really happy. The earth pony smiled, her eyes sparkling beautifully. Scootaloo let out a sigh, accompanied by a single wet tear. Sweetie Belle simply just looked at her friends, wide-eyed. "What is it, Apple Bloom?" the white filly asked, confused. "Why are you staring like that? You look like you've seen a ghost." "Well, if ghosts are really pretty, I guess." She followed Apple Bloom's gaze and pouted in confusion. Ponyville Hospital. Was this the spot? "They are pretty, Sweetie Belle." Scootaloo's gaze went to Apple Bloom, and then back to the white filly. The orange Pegasus smiled. 1,000 thoughts suddenly went through Sweetie Belle's mind as she pieced together the puzzle that had stumped her for so long. At last, she began to understand, but she wasn't sure she liked that at all. "No," Sweetie Belle sobbed as her eyes grew watery. "Apple Bloom, to tell me it's gonna be fine. Tell me you're still okay." Apple Bloom looked away from her invisible wonder and turned to Sweetie Belle. "I am okay, sweetie. In fact, I'm great." Apple Bloom's grand smile softened as she realized the sorrow in her friend's eyes. "Look, what you're thinking about me right now? I'm sorry, sweetie, but it's true. I was sick. Sweetie, I was real sick. And, well..." Apple Bloom struggled to find her voice again. "I know. I think I always knew. It's just, I wouldn't believe it." "Oh, and I still can't, Apple Bloom." The little white filly threw her arms around her friend, realizing for the first time how empty the space really was. But she knew it wasn't truly empty, and so she grasped tighter. "Sweetie Belle, I don't want to say goodbye either," Apple Bloom cried. "But it's not really goodbye. It's more of see you later if you think about it." "I just don't want you to go, Apple Bloom. I don't know what I'll do without you." Sweetie Belle cried into Apple Bloom's transparent mane. Maybe I can convince Rarity, or Twilight, or the princess. Yeah, she could probably see you, and then she could tell every pony else that you could stay. It'll be like nothing changed. We can try really, really hard, and..." "Sweetie, I have to do this, and I'm sorry it's gotta be so soon. But, well, one day, you will too." Apple Bloom wiped her dry tears away, and her eyes hardened. "You just gotta trust me." "And me." This was not the voice of her friend Apple Bloom or Scootaloo, but a motherly voice as old as time that spoke now. "Your friend Apple Bloom is wise, and what she tells you is true. It is her time, Sweetie Belle, and you must learn to do what is best for her, and let go." Sweetie Belle was in shock of the disembodied voice speaking to her, but she wasn't afraid of it. It was a loving, caring voice. Eventually, the little filly managed to gather up her strength and spoke. "I guess Apple Bloom would do the same for me. I know she would." All three fillies can hear the voice, and her friends smiled at her. "And if I have to do this for you to be happy, then... Okay, Apple Bloom. I will take care of her, as I will take care of all of you, little ponies. And you will see your friend again, Sweetie Belle. I promise you." Although Sweetie Belle and Scootaloo could not see the owner of this voice, they knew that she was smiling, for a brilliant essence of warmth encompassed on all three fillies, and they couldn't help the powerful urge to smile. The three fillies joined together into a group hug, which seemed to last forever. Their tears had dried, and none of them were crying now, not even Sweetie Belle. They just had their loving embrace. No words were spoken, as they all told each other their feelings. In that instant, they were not three little fillies anymore, but one union, one soul, An eternity passed before the friends can finally let go of each other. Sweetie knew what was coming, but she didn't feel sad about it anymore. In fact, for the first time, she felt happy for her friend. Apple Bloom turned to Sweetie Belle and Scootaloo and looked at each of them in the eyes. "See you later, guys. I love ya." As Apple Bloom's eyes once again transformed into those beautiful orbs of light, Sweetie Belle could have sworn she saw the form of Princess Celestia reflecting in her glassy surface. And the princess was smiling. "Take it easy, Apple Bloom." "See you later, Apple Bloom. We love you too." The end. Hello guys, Snogwritts here. As always, it was great to read this to all of you. I definitely enjoyed reading this myself, of course. Okay, now that we're done with the reading, it's time for a little analysis. Okay, so here's this. When it comes to a sad fic, of course, you need a lot of tone. But the author had a really creative way of showing that tone. In the beginning of the fic, you don't even realize it's a sad fic anymore. But as you slowly get engaged into the plotline of the story, you actually feel a little tone. That's because it's developing this tone even more from start to finish. And at the end, you get a large outburst of tone, which I think was a really great idea. And I was pretty bewildered of how the author managed to do that. Despite being only a few pages, I really felt like the author did a really good job showing that these three little fillies had a strong relationship. And throughout the fic, you could definitely feel that. And that will definitely do a good job of making the reader feel about these characters. As well as me, because I definitely had that feeling when I was reading it. However, I felt like the author could have been a little more creative. Specifically, on the scene where Sweetie Belle actually finds out that Apple Bloom was sick. And by that, she actually found out by just looking at the Ponyville Hospital. And I kind of felt that that was a bland point right there. I felt like the author just put it that point there and then just skipped into how Apple Bloom was actually sick and all, and how Rarity was actually telling her the truth. But I felt like the author could have done a little more with that scene. Specifically, what I mean is that when you have a scene and have a plot point on a story, you definitely want to use it to its fullest advantage to describe the characters and its setting and what it's taking place in. So, if I were the author, I would probably do something with that scene a little more. But of course, the author did a great job writing this fic, and I definitely enjoyed reading it. Alright, let's wrap this video up. So the way the author developed the tone really intrigues me. I think using this method will definitely help on many sad fic writing. Trying new things is definitely essential to a writer, so have the confidence to try them, and they'll definitely bring you somewhere. Alright, that's it for me. This is Snogwritts, signing out.